Good morning. So I wanted to touch base with you guys on sections 2 and 3 of Antigone before we get started this week on our next sections. There are 7 total, so you guys should be reading 4 and 5 this week. But I just wanted to go over 2 and 3 just so we're on the same page. For section 2, this was our first ode. Remember, odes have 3 parts, and because this is an excerpt of Antigone, it is not the entire play. We actually do not have one of the 3 parts for any of our odes. The 2 parts that we do have are our strophes and our antistrophes. Remember, strophes and antistrophes are giving 2 different sides of a particular discussion or argument. And they glorify or praise someone, something, or an idea. So like an idea, an event, or a individual or person. So when we're looking at the first ode, so section 2 is our entire first ode, we see a couple of important pieces. So it starts off initially praising the city of Thebes and how, glorious it is, how wonderful it is. And of course, it's being described by Theban elders. So the people who live there are saying that it's great. So people who live in a particular place are going to say their place is wonderful, great, magnificent. So we do know that this is from a particular perspective, which is important to keep in mind because this will always, or all of the odes will be from that particular perspective. So we should always keep in mind that they have a particular bias that they're trying to carry through to us. So for this ode, it seems to be conveying some information about one particular event. It starts to tell us about Polynices and how he attempted with the Argive army to take over the city of Thebes and destroy it, but it did not work out as planned. So some of the gods get involved and actually help turn the tides of the war. So originally Polynices is winning this war according to the first strophe and antistrophe. And then the tables start to turn around strophe 2, where Polynices is kind of taken down by the gods, and we kind of finish up this ode with the city of Thebes celebrating their victory over the Argive army and the defeat of Polynices. So in here, guys, I hope you notice that there are a lot of, obviously, allusions to some of those Greek gods. There are a lot of really great description elements here, especially when they're describing the violence of the Argive army or the destruction that happens to Polynices, even the description of Thebes to begin with in strophe 1. So overall, they're kind of conveying this particular event, and they're, praising the win of Thebes over the rest of the community. So just like on another chart that I had showed you for section 1, which I know you can't really see it well right now, but I will be posting, we'll be posting a picture of it as well so you guys can see it a little bit better. Sorry guys, as you can see, it's early. It's Monday. I'm trying hard. So for today, section 2, sorry, Lord. As you can see, I'm struggling this morning, guys. So we are in a particular location. We're obviously in the city of Thebes. We are seeing 2 major characters, our chorus leader as well as our chorus, which is always going to be the character that presents our odes for us in this play. We have summaries for strophes and antistrophes here, which aren't written down, but I just did review them. And then, obviously, we have a definition of an ode here, which is to glorify or praise a particular event, person, or idea. In this particular case, it's the defense of Thebes over the Argive army and Polynices. And then down here we have some definitions of the chorus here. So the chorus's job is to be a public voice. They are there to share the opinions of the public when the public can't really be there to do that. They do typically do this. They show, or the Theban elders here, the chorus, is actually showing us what the people would want. Obviously, the people would want their community to win and to feel safe in their community. Now, moving on to section 2. Section 2 has a regular dialogue section, but it also has an ode section. We're looking at section 3. Section 3, we finally meet Creon, and we start off this conversation by having Creon give a really, really lengthy description of what he sees as a good leader and a bad leader. Now, does he really follow this over the course of the text? I guess that will be your job to kind of determine that. But he says a lot of things. He says that, dishonorable people should not be honored, that good leaders lead and take advice well. They look for the best possible advice out there. While he does claim to be, very people-centered and really interested in helping out the community, he doesn't seem to actually fit that role well. He tends to come off pretty selfish, especially as he uses first person singular, so I, me, my, rather than using that first person plural, such as we, us, our. He continues through the scene to talk to the chorus and the chorus leader and kind of conveying what his plans are, and the chorus, of course, is kind of questioning that. Then we meet the guard. The guard, he's kind of a fool character. He's meant to be kind of an idiot, or to at least come off as quite an idiot. So the guard comes and tells him that there's something really terrible that has happened, that the body of Polynices has been buried. And of course, Creon's freaking out. How could this happen? How could anybody disobey my rule? And the guard is kind of like, look, I don't know what happened. I'm just here to tell you that we know the body is buried. And of course, Creon starts blaming the guard, and he's like, it's your fault. You did this. You were bribed. So he immediately assumes that someone has done this for money or for a bad reason, rather than assuming that maybe it was one of his sisters out of respect for the family. So the guard goes back and forth with him a little bit further in the text. Creon is not very nice to the guard, and he's very aggressive towards him, in fact. And again, assumes that the guard is greedy. So this shows us a lot about Creon, that he jumps to conclusions of money over respect or family connection. Whereas the guard is kind of just interested in saving his life. He just wants to make it through. And that's primarily the dialogue section. It's not very complex, but it does have a lot of bits and pieces there, so I hope you were noticing some good stuff in there as well. And then we move on to our second ode. So our second ode does something very interesting. It actually honors humans. It glorifies humans and their ability to adapt and use the resources, or be resourceful. So the first strophe kind of talks about how people tend to experience hardship and how gods create those hardships, particularly Poseidon in this particular case. In Antistrophe 1, they start talking about how men are able to kind of tame this wildness and, have animals, have travel, how they're able to farm and whatnot. How they're able to eventually, and when we get into Strophe 2, it kind of explains how we developed language, how we developed medication, clothing, all these great things that make a community survive. Not just survive, though, but be kind of successful. We create, we adapt, we find education. And then moving into Strophe 2, it kind of rounds everything out. And talking, kind of like mentioning Creon, so suggesting that even though there's all these adaptive powers or intuitive, inventive issues or skills, Creon doesn't seem to live up to that. So this is maybe the chorus, maybe commenting on Creon's way of ruling or handling certain issues, because especially if Creon just spoke, we're getting the chorus at that pivotal moment. Notice though, especially in here, the one thing they say that humans cannot get around would be death. It says that even though humans can make medication, they can try really hard to avoid death, they can't really avoid it completely. So those are the next two sections. On this chart, we have the location. So we have Thebes. We have our major characters, Creon, Chorus, and Chorus Leader, and Guard. Here are the parts for that summary here. We have a second section here for the Ode. And then we talked about dynamic and static characters as well as Creon's characterization. So dynamic and static characters are also known as flat and round characters. So dynamic characters are round characters. They're characters that change over the course of time in text. They are typically our major characters or our protagonist alone. Static characters, on the other hand, are kind of like stock characters or stereotypical characters. They don't really change over the course of the text. They're there just to kind of do one particular job, and then you're supposed to move on and have a new character. So we have an example of each. For dynamic, we have Antigone and potentially Creon. And for static, we had actually put the Guard as potentially a static character. We described Creon a couple of different ways, but here's some of the answers we put on the board. It says Creon changes his ways over time for the worst. We also have maybe that he is possibly bold, which we also argued Antigone maybe. And then we have Creon as a selfish king. So those are just some descriptions. Obviously, those aren't the only descriptions you could use, but those are just a few you can kind of get started with if you were unsure. So again, guys, you're probably going to be looking at sections 4 and 5 this week, so pay attention to those, and I'll be posting a review video for 4 and 5 after we finish reading, of course. This week, I'll probably post it early next week. So let me know if you have any further questions, guys. I'd be happy to answer them as always. Keep in mind that testing is coming up. Our testing dates are May 10th, 11th, and 12th. You typically need to come during your block. So if you have me for first block, you'd come during first. If you have me for third, you'd come during third block. Let me know if you have any questions, guys. I'll be around.